Well, hey everyone. Welcome back to the Tales of Recovery. This is Gris Alves, your host, and my friend Kat Kurner is here today as a guest. Welcome, Kat.
Hi, thank you so much for having
Excited
me.
to
I'm
have you
honored.
here. Yes. Kat is psilocybin coach, a facilitator, space holder, activist, speaker, and we have a lot to talk about today. Not just your story, but also, all psilocybin and psychedelics, powerful things, how to become involved in this work, what's going on with the legalization and decriminalization about this, end of life work, lots of really fun things we're going to talk about.
Yeah,
Super light.
fun stuff. Yeah, end of life and legalization. Yeah, this is
super
good.
fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, so to start, I wondered if you wanted to share kind of how you got to doing this kind of work, a little bit of your story.
Yeah. Well, I feel like people who come to this work were coming down a road towards it really their whole life, right? So the condensed version is I had a deep reverence for medicine work, for my own healing, my own journey. So from age 13, I sat with psilocybin for the first time, dabbled with LSD by the time I was 15. I was really fortunate that I was not prone to addiction because so many of the people I was hanging with were. But I've been able to utilize different kinds of plant medicines for really introspection and my own personal growth and healing my whole life. So I sat with ayahuasca, I sat with in peyote meetings through Native American Church, which is really for me where I feel like I got my training and the ability to hold space for groups of folks. And then I helped my mother transition when I was 27. She was dying from cancer, and I was then introduced to hospice and realized that I had that gift of working with people at the end of their life. Right. And I loved it. I just really enjoyed the realness. I think that's part of my personality. What gets me in trouble a lot is that I have very little filter. And that Leo-Sag combo is kind of, fiery.
It's kind of fun. I like it.
Yeah. Well, you understand it. That's why.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
But I like the realness when people are facing the end of their life. They get real quick. Yeah. And so the small things definitely are not sweated, if you will. So,
where did your mom die? At your house? At her house?
She actually died at her house, up in Hemet. Yeah.
You were with her the whole time?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful initiations of life.
Very powerful initiation. And I think you really have to have that kind of initiation to be able to hold space for people during that most tender, intimate time.
And intense.
Yeah.
It's intense.
And then I did train with Elizabeth Hospice for, volunteer work, but it's very limited what you can do. And it's still very limited within hospice. Hospice wants nothing to do with psychedelics. Right. They want, we can barely get them to accept medical aid in dying at this point, So there's a lot of conservatism still in hospice. Yeah. So, and also growing up, my mother sent money to Jack Kevorkian. I read Final Exit when I was 15. She was very involved with the Hemlock Society, and my mom was kind of a radical activist. She fought for, the rights of women. She set the train tracks on fire that were carrying guns to the Vietnam War. She was.
Oh, she did.
Yeah, she was setting She was making bonfires on the train tracks. So, she was. She is still a big part of my work. Quick, you have time for a quick story?
Of course.
Quick little story.
Yeah.
So the first person that I journeyed as an end of life client, and I work from my home, so we were in my home, and it was everything you would want it to be. You know, as a person who's just starting out, you're full of sort of anxiety and nerves around, am I doing this right? And, you know, because certainly we didn't have any training programs when I was starting out. And so it was a lot of intuition, a lot of learning from, the peyote way, but again, something completely different. So she was in the medicine. About midway through, she sat up and...
This is your mom?
No, this is the first person who I ever journeyed end of life with psilocybin. So she's in the journey. She sits up and she takes off her eye mask, takes off the headphones, and she says, "Kat, I am God." And I said, "Yeah, baby, you are God." And she said, "I'm not afraid anymore." And I said, "That's beautiful. You don't need to be afraid. There's nothing to fear." And then she looked at me and she said, "And I feel your mom." And I said, "Oh, beautiful. I'm glad she came. I'm glad she's here with us." So my mother, my mother was passing about a week before she died, I have no idea why, but I was laying next to her, just sort of watching her sleep. And it began to rain. And she opened her eyes and after a moment said, "I'm really going to miss the sound of the rain." And that was heavy for me. It stayed with me. And as my client laid back down and put the headphones on and put the eye mask back on, it began to rain. And she said, "I'm going to miss the sound of the rain."
Whoa.
And I was just like, of course, tears and tears, because I thought, oh, my mom's really here. Yeah. She's really here. So as I said, I think the medicine path is a path that you're called to, and there are little roads along the way that lead you to where you hopefully end up. When I was 19 years old, I was making out with my husband and I left my body. I shot out through the top of my head, looked down, could see us, freaked out, screamed no, because I had no context. I was not walking a spiritual path. I didn't know about Kundalini. I didn't know about meditation. Yeah. I just knew that suddenly I was hovering above my body. So I screamed no.
And you were sober?
I think we had taken a hit off of a joint. Okay. And maybe a little wine. But I do remember we were listening to The Wave, which was like a new agey radio station in LA. We lived in LA at the time. And it was drum beats.
Okay.
And
that'll do it.
I'm telling you. And so when I came back into my body, because I said again, no, and I screamed and I didn't scream out loud, but I was screaming wherever I was. Right. And came back into my body, pushed my husband away, and I was filled with this vibrational energy and light and love. And I was crying and laughing at the same time. And he's like, "What is going on with you?" And I was like, "I have no idea, but this just happened." And so I feel that experience was a glimpse, and it allowed me to fully understand that we are body and we are spirit. We are soul, you know? So, yeah. And then Johns Hopkins University came out with their study about end-of-life anxiety and treatment-resistant depression and how they were utilizing psilocybin. Mm-hmm. And I read the study and decided that was what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I was a body worker. I was a holistic health practitioner. So I'd been putting my hands on people and counseling people and coaching people really, for 20 years. So it was sort of natural, that my intuition was being developed, and putting hands on people really teaches you a lot.
So how did you get into the end of life? Through the Johns Hopkins, or you just through the hospice?
Yeah, I was really lucky because I have a dear friend of mine who's married to a palliative care doctor here in San Diego, and they were really at the forefront of fighting for the medical aid in dying, rights of people to end their life without suffering. And
we'll have to talk about that in a bit.
Yeah, so I was just so fortunate because as I started doing more research, and I went to the Netherlands because the Netherlands were already working with folks with psilocybin troubles at end of life, and did some training there. And when I came back, I just basically announced to everybody in my life, this is what I do now. Right. So if you know anybody who's dying, ship them my way. And because there was nothing for me. Like there was no framework, there was no way to apprentice that work here. And so it was largely because of the fact that I had developed a really good relationship in my reputation in my practice that I had already built.
Right.
And I went to every conference. I met everybody. I talked to everybody. I'm pretty bold, so I would just phone people up, and they'd be like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "I'm Kat Kurner. I work with people who end of life with medicine." They're like, "Where?"
Right.
And it was so interesting to find out and know that there were people who were doing the work underground for years,
Yeah.
years and years and years, and they were just silent. They just never talked about it. And so, yeah.
I like that you said that. I was at this. You were a panel moderator. I think it was at the movie theater in Encinitas one day, like
La
after
Paloma.
Mushroom movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things you said, because people were asking all sorts of different questions, lots of people on the panel, but it was like, okay, what are we going to do about decrim and this and that?
Yeah.
And you were just like, listen, that, I don't know if it's going to happen. What we're doing here underground
Yeah.
and connecting and networking, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, brilliant because, yeah, we can wait for that. We can talk about that too. But, I mean, that's how I do most of my, my connections, my work for years. And it's always been, it's like, it's working.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it hasn't been until just the last, 7 or 8 years that we've even been really talking about it,
Yeah.
But I will tell you that I've gone through so many incantations around this, because at first I thought, oh, wouldn't it just be amazing if this was just legal and we could just, But then I realized after Oregon happened that when you create legal framework, you create a framework for commodification, and you create a framework for licensure and for training and for all of these different things that are said to be necessary to sit safely with these medicines. And what that also creates is exclusion, because as a practitioner, and again, as we've seen modeled now in Oregon, if you have to take a training that costs you $10,000
or more,
if you have to get a certification and a permission and a permit and all of the things and fall in line in the regulatory framework, that costs money.
Yeah.
So that means that a session with someone that costs maybe $1,500 to sit with me costs $3,500 bare minimum.
Right.
And then they want you to do microdosing journeys first, and that's another $500 to $1,000. And so it becomes cost prohibitive. So that means that there's only a certain kind of person that has access to that healing. And the other thing is, the more that we subscribe to the idea that psilocybin, which has 0 addictive properties, that has multiple medicinal properties, should be a Schedule 1 drug, or that you should have to have some legal framework in which to sit with this medicine, the more that we pour that into the narrative and into the collective, I think we do damage. So I think we need to talk much more about the fact that psilocybin should not be a scheduled drug at all. It is nature. That's why. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I'm agreeing.
One of the things I fell in love with decriminalized nature's ethos was that it's so simple. It's gift, gather, grow. So that means you are able to grow a certain amount, that you're able to share a certain amount, and that you're able to gather with your community and share that gift, if you will. And, the challenge with that is that there's no money in it, So if you're a company that wants to make a lot of money off of pharmaceutical company. Even though, again, I think one of the things I was soapboxing at that premiere was they already have a synthetic psilocybin.
Right.
And so I think what I was saying is that psilocybin is going to be a prescription. Big Pharma has it already. And so, like, let's not put our focus on that. Like, don't fight the man over that, because it's gone.
Right.
What we should be putting our energy into, I think, is education and awareness around what decriminalization actually means. And it is not a free pass. It's not legalization. Even Oregon, we know that these molecules and this beautiful medicine is still federally illegal.
Right.
So I mean, we're in such a strange time right
It's the
now.
same as marijuana. Like
Sure, yeah. So, but I think that Oregon is, I don't know. I mean, I think they're brave, in some ways, because especially in our climate now, if the federal government wanted to really clean up, all they have to do is go to Oregon. It would be like shooting fish in a barrel,
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they realize the shit show that we have with the mental health crisis in the United States, and
Yeah.
because you're mentioning how the decrim and legalization, and it has all these negative aspects to it, but also at the same time, the people that are like, oh no, mushrooms, psilocybin, that's just like the same stigma that has fallen now in California at least, and in lots of other places from actually the benefits of marijuana.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell you, my mom, when she had a stroke,
Yeah.
the only thing that would calm her anxiety and allow her to eat and chill was marijuana.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the whole family and her doctors were like, no, you can't give her that. Here's all these pills. I'm not giving her any pills, because they just dumb her out. And, and marijuana is very good for her. And little by little, the stigma starts to fall off. So
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
the mentality of the
Yes.
people that think that that's a horrible thing can begin to be like, hey, listen,
Yes.
actually,
Yeah.
your ancestors have been using this for thousands of years all over the world. It's going to expand your consciousness. It's going to connect you to love. You're going to meet God, because goddess, because that's la carne de los dioses. That's
Yes.
what the Aztecs call it. And why do you think they want it to be illegal? Think about that. They don't make alcohol illegal, and that shit dumbs you down, and it has no, I mean, it's nice to have a glass of wine, I guess, with dinner here and there, but it's not anything that expands your consciousness or connects you more to your humanity or helps the world be a better place.
I always say that nobody ever takes mushrooms and goes home and beats their wife.
Right.
Right? I mean, you don't go leave a ceremony where you sat with mushrooms and you want to hurt your kids or kick the dog,
Exactly.
I the same. I enjoy a nice glass of wine now and again, but on the whole, alcohol is a low vibration drug, and nicotine, for example. I mean, this is all things that we can get them on any corner of any supermarket, and yet they're perfectly legal, and that's because they have a really good lobby.
Right.
The alcohol and tobacco lobby is a big lobby. And so I'm hearing you, and I think you're right. I think that the exposure that the main, I mean, even with Michael Pollan's book and Oprah Winfrey and Gwyneth Paltrow and all of the ways in which that it's coming into the mainstream, I think there's a lot of positive around that. What I would like to see is more people who have the money and have the power and to have the ability to push through legislation, talking more about decriminalization. Just recently in Washington State, it was really beautiful. I mean, they came forward and said, listen, this legislation without decriminalization is going to disproportionately affect BIPOC communities, marginalized communities, and we need to do better. And I think we do need to do better. Now, when you're looking at programs like things that are passing in Texas right now for ibogaine, it's great. Yeah. Ibogaine is a pharmaceutical. They're getting, lots of veterans the help they so desperately need. I don't want to stand anywhere near that saying, oh, you can't do that without decrim. Not at all. Great. Let that happen. But when you have a situation where you're specifically talking about nature, psilocybin mushrooms, that you have a framework where the only way in which people can access this medicine is through a legal, clinical, you know, way, it's just not fair. And I want to talk more about that in the public.
Yeah.
I want to destigmatize, and it's also not taking anything away from the fact that this is not for everyone. Psilocybin is not for everyone. And there needs to be more education around that. I often say that, you know, I don't go to a liquor store and buy a gallon of vodka and bring it home and drink a gallon of vodka. Why don't I do that? Well, because somehow I have the education around the fact that that's not a good idea, right? Why is it so difficult to educate people around psilocybin, around what strain you have, around the psilocin content, around how it's grown, where you get it, how you sort, like, we have the World Wide Web. You can find out anything. All you have to do is ask. And so I would like to see people asking more about it and educating themselves more about it.
Chat GPT.
Or that, you know, whatever.
Or ask Kat.
It still freaks me out a little bit, the whole AI thing.
Yeah.
I have to be real about
Yeah.
that. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah. It's like a learning curve of how far to take it, how far
Yes.
not to take it. Yeah.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
far?
Exactly. Like anything else, right? Equanimity, balance.
Yeah, balance.
But yeah, that's a big, thank you for saying that, because I think it is important to know, like, more, even the details that you said, like what kind of strains are these, and does this affect me this way or that way, and
Yeah.
and also not just the information on psilocybin, but I would say how to prepare for,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, really. I was talking to this guy today. Gosh, I forgot his name. Well, you're gonna go to this thing on Saturday. Like, I think his name is Matt Ritchie.
Yes. Yeah.
He's a moderator in this panel that they asked me to talk about embodiment and psychedelics on Saturday. And so I teach this course, right? It's like a 6-week trauma and embodiment class before you go sit with the mushroom.
Yeah.
Because I think there's, besides the just like, well, what is this? Let me see, let me try it. You want to be super in your body before you blow your mind out,
Right.
kind of like you said, like you got out of your body. Yeah, I had some of the experiences drumming also when I was, 19, 20, and I was like, what's happening? No,
Oh, wow.
because nobody teaches us these possibilities.
Right. Right.
It's super
Yeah.
witchy, super magical, super crazy being in this planet as humans. And we get all that shit ripped out by the same, I would say, entities or companies or corporations or government that don't want to make this a substance, a DEA1, whatever the hell it's called. Schedule 1. So even just beginning to open up your mind about the possibilities of what we are actually doing here and have the capacity to do and be, which I guess goes hand in hand with taking the mushrooms.
Yeah, and I mean, what you talk about is so important, and we talk about it a lot in the space, and that is the first truly identifying with an individual if psychedelics are right for them, because they are not for everybody. And then once we've really gotten there and ascertained that, the preparation of coming before they actually come to this experience is so important. Probably 65% of the people I work with have never had a non-ordinary state experience ever in their life. Some of them, I mean, like, not smoked a joint, like nothing. And so you can imagine, and this is why we talk so much about the strain. I work with a strain called Golden Teacher, which is probably one of the most gentle, I think, strains. But you have, albino penis envy, which is like 5 times stronger. And some of these other ones, and now a lot of the mycologists are getting, sort of in the same vein that a lot of the cannabis growers did, like the most THC possible. We want it to be the strongest it can be. Well, in this work, that's not necessarily what is needed and is wanted. right? Because I mean, the oldest client I ever worked with was 90 years old, and I don't need a 90-year-old sweet lady who's never smoked a joint in her life, to have to meet Terrence McKenna and the machine aliens. It's not going to do her much good.
Right.
So the preparation, then of course the integration. I don't work with anybody that isn't. Most of my clients are referred from therapists and doctors now. And so I don't work with anybody that doesn't have support set up. And I do coaching. If they don't have anybody and they want to work with me, I will work with them. But I just cannot stress enough. I mean, the journey is one thing, but the integration is just as important.
Right. How do you make sense of this?
Yeah.
So what, for the people listening, if they're like thinking about this, what would you say are the people that are, yes, you should probably now go do a journey? Like, what would be their, I guess the checks, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The most important thing is, I think, who you sit with, and really doing your homework and really investigating. Get a referral if you can. If you do find, there's a website called tripsitters.org, and they vet their trip sitters, and so they're all over the country. You can go there and pick somebody. But just because somebody is vetted and they're, maybe skilled at what they do, they still might not be the right guide for you.
Right.
They still might not be the right facilitator. In my practice, I do a phone call first to ascertain, just to make sure that folks are medically sound to sit with medicine. Then if they're local, I try to invite them to my home where I work so they can meet me in person,
Right.
and really see where they're going to be doing the work, and also see if they vibe with me.
Yeah.
Because not everybody does, and we're asking people to hold their soul safe while they go through this most intimate, beautiful, sometimes terrifying experience. And so I encourage, like, for example, I don't let people book with me even after they come for the second time. I don't let them book. I ask them to go, talk to other people, really think about it, and then when they're ready, call me. And it's always there. I never follow up with a phone call to people. It's always led by them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think do your research, Google people's names. I mean, I think when people are doing not good work, it's on the internet. You can find out. But yeah, choosing the right person, listening to your intuition. When you're with
Right.
somebody, if they give you a heebie-jeebie feeling or whatever, run.
Mm-hmm.
Trust yourself.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think I also, that being said, it's also like, why should I take mushrooms, right? I would say, like, if you've been through extensive talk therapy or retreats, or you've tried everything, you've been, I don't know, to India and back, and you've tried to do this and you still feel super stuck,
Yeah.
but you've done some work, you know what it is like to be then it would be.
Yeah.
I don't know, what do you think about, I work with a lot of people that they wean off of antidepressants because they're just over it. It's not working. And then they do a deep journey, and then of course they keep going. Some go back on them, most don't.
Yeah.
But I think it's a beautiful alternative to being stuck on these pharmaceuticals. That maybe they're good for a little bit, but honestly, they don't really work. They don't.
Well, I think,
To
we
get to
have
the root.
yeah.
Not that they don't work for a little bit, but to get to the root. Yeah.
I think we have to be careful about the way that we talk about this very sensitive subject, because I think there's a population that just really do need them. And then I think that there's another more of the population that they have just been overprescribed to,
Right.
because what else are we going to do? Someone is not functioning. We got to have people to turn the machines. So let's get them functioning. It's deeper, harder work. This work, the psilocybin path, or the iboga or ibogaine or whatever it is, it's a path and it's work. It's a lot. It's a lot of very, very deep work. My daughter, she's found her recovery through deep medicine work,
Yeah.
being in the jungle for a month, having iboga for 8 days. We shut down my house and we turned it into our private iboga retreat for her. Going to Mexico, sitting with peyote, sitting with psilocybin. And I mean, she's worked so hard to heal that trauma that pushed her towards substances
Yeah.
and away from herself. So I think that weaning off, when someone comes to me and they want to get off, I mean, I do direct them to their doctor because I feel like it's a safety issue
Right.
and they need to do that with their doctor. And then I would say, I mean, I don't know hard science on it, but for me, 75% of my clients who are on them never go back.
Yeah.
But then they also replace that with some kind of a microdosing regime,
Yeah.
something like that.
And an actual processing of emotional turmoil and trauma.
Right.
Not just, it's not just the mushroom.
Yeah.
It's also, you have to feel some of this shit, which is what we have been avoiding.
That's right. And that's what psychedelics can do. It can definitely make you feel some of that shit.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of that shit.
They're feeling medicine for sure.
Yeah, but you got to go through it. You got to feel it to go through it, or it's always there.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is people think they're going to drink it away or drug it away or whatever. And it's just wakes up in the morning and looks you in the face and goes, yep, I'm still here, So, and that's, again, one of the beautiful things of working with these medicines with folks. I don't just work with folks at end of life. It is my specialty.
Right.
And as I said, sort of what I love the most.
Mm-hmm.
But I work with domestic violence survivors. I work with people who have PTSD, military personnel, some addiction. I usually like people like yourself who really have lived the life of addiction and know it inside out, to work with that population, because I think it's very specific.
Right.
But I do, certainly sometimes. And, we find that it's really, when you get down to it, it all comes back to this place of love, right? And if we can get you back there, loving yourself and finding that love for yourself and moving from love, then the hope, at least, is that you're less likely to want to hurt yourself with drugs and alcohol or bad relationships or things that are just not good for you.
Right.
And that if you are facing the end of your life, that you're able to find forgiveness for yourself or for your family members or that person who wronged you 30 years ago or whatever. And so that you go and you leave this carnation. It feels like carnage right now.
Yeah.
But, you leave this place somehow freer. Lighter.
Yeah. On to the next adventure.
On to the next adventure. Yeah.
What have some of those experiences been like for you? The end of life.
You mean with my clients?
Mm-hmm.
Again, sort of one of the things I love about this work is that every single person is different, right? So you're dealing with that particular person's soul and that soul's experience, right? So, again, Kathy Elliott Carver is my favorite client. She was 90 and she transitioned about 3 months after we worked together. And I have a great video of her. I did a before video and an after video with her. And I said, why are you coming to this medicine at this time? You're 90, And she said, well, for one, I've always wanted to try it. And I was like, okay. And she goes, and another thing is maybe getting a little glimpse of where I'm going, before I get there would be fun. And her journey was just joy. It was just so full of joy. She just laughed and cried with joy and laughed. And, it's not always like that, but she was just so full of joy. And, it was beautiful. And then just helping folks to come to lose that fear is the most beautiful. Challenging for me. My brother who passed away at the end of January, and I took a couple of months to help walk him home. And there was a lot of,
He was at your home?
he was at my home. He didn't actually end up passing at my home. He passed in a hospice, a beautiful hospice home in Carlsbad, because he needed nursing 24/7 because he was on a pump with Dilaudid and a Versed sedation pump. He was fighting because he never accepted it,
That he was leaving.
that he was dying.
Right.
And it is so interesting being with somebody who's worked with the dying for so long. It is just so different when it's your people.
Yep.
And especially, he and I were just so close. And to have, I have so many resources at my fingertips. I was like, I can get somebody here tomorrow and you can drink a tea and this will all be over. And he's like, what? And never see, Chris again, who was his girlfriend. And I go, it's going to happen one way or the other. He's like, I'm so tired of people coming in here telling me I'm dying. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. The dance of that.
Right.
And when it's your people, like I said, it's a little bit different.
Did he ever succumb to it, or it just took him?
No. So I have another, we have time for another little story.
We have time for all the stories.
Okay. So my brother was 70 when he passed and never, ever picked up technology to the point where he did not send text messages.
Okay.
He could not retrieve a voicemail message off of his phone. He called you, right? If he could see that you called and he would call you back, but he called you. He talked on the phone. So Apple had an upgrade somewhere along between the time that he left my house and went into the hospital. He was in the hospital for a bit before he transitioned to the hospice house. And it gives you the ability to record a conversation, a two-way conversation.
On the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's just like these little lines and a dot, and you push that and it says conversation now being recorded.
Oh, it does say it out loud?
It does.
Okay.
It does say it out loud.
I was wondering about that. I'm like,
yeah.
if I click this, is the other person going to know?
Yes,
Okay.
It announces it. And it says, recording in 3 seconds, whatever. And so about a week before he passed, he called me. And we had a long conversation about how grateful he was to me for everything that I had done for him. How I want to interject here that people face their death very much like they have faced their life.
Yep.
And my brother, bless his heart, he was a Libra. He did not like confrontation of any sort. Definitely put his head in the sand. He was in recovery for 20 years, 25 years, maybe almost 30 years by the time he passed. Definitely was a head in the sand, person. And so he said, I just, I'm having a little bit of a hard time right now. And I said, what are you having a hard time with? He goes, oh, just, everything that's going on. And I said, do you mean because you're dying? And he goes, oh, Kath, you're always so obsessed with people dying. I'm like, no, I'm just curious of what you're thinking about, Anyway, the doctor's coming in, and I just wanted to tell you, I love you, and thank you so much. And okay. So after my brother passed, I had his phone, and I opened his phone, and there was a voice note in his phone. And I was like, how did my brother ever record a voice note? That's odd.
Yeah.
And I pushed the button, and it was our conversation. He had somehow pushed that button, and we had that conversation. And so what a gift, right? Because I have that conversation between us, the last really deep conversation we had. And I have no idea why I'm telling you this story now. I've completely lost the plot.
You listen to it and cry.
Oh, I listen to it a lot. I don't do it so much anymore because it was just so much. Grief is a river. Grief comes and goes. Yeah. But grief is cleansing, and grief is a part of life. And if we didn't have grief, we wouldn't be able to enjoy our joy. Yeah.
My dad, I have all these, and it's funny you mentioned this right now because yesterday I was like I'm deleting all my voicemails, but I never delete the ones from my dad.
Of course, yeah.
And it's just like hearing his voice, like, Mijita, what's going on? You coming to get me?
Yeah.
I'm waiting here.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't pick up. He's like, she wants me to leave a message. And he's just talking and talking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And my brother, every single solitary time he called and left a voicemail message, it always started the same way. Kath, it's Danny.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah.
Kath, it's Danny.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know it's you, Danny.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. And it's just, it's just wild. And my brother always knocked on my door like he was the DEA. You know, like he didn't know how to gently knock. It was always pounding. And now I miss that.
Yeah.
I miss that sound.
Oh, I know. So it's so rough. It's like this. It's like a joke almost being in this planet. It's like, what a bad joke. I mean, what a good experience. And also like, Jesus, it's like over and they pull the rug out of you and then you're out of here on to the next, who knows what adventure. But it's just this, the being embodied part is, it's like a whole training. It's like a whole training of.
It is.
Being able to feel all these things and be okay feeling them, and then not, of course, never by yourself. It's a good thing to have others, but man, is it rough.
Yeah, it's rough, but also I think one of the things that my own work with psychedelics has helped me to understand is that it's all just a dream.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think the other thing that psychedelics can do is they can really help us lighten up about a lot. Yeah. I have to be reminded of that because I'm intense, and I'm fiery. I have a lot of passion and a lot of wounds, even though we do the work and we continue to do the work, I don't know when we're ever healed, right? Because
till the last day.
Right? Yeah, because that little 7-year-old, she rears her head and grabs the keys to the car sometimes. And I'm like, oh shit, wait. No, you don't get to drive. Right. And it's still happening. It happens less frequently now because I understand more now.
You're more aware of it. Yeah.
More awareness. But I think that's one of the things that psychedelics really can do is they can help us just not take all of this so seriously, and find the lightness in life, find the lightness in being. And, again, I mean, I know it sounds so simplistic and it's far more challenging to actually live it every single day. But if you can come from love, if you can check in with yourself. And I remember, preaching this to my daughter and then losing my shit with her. Like, she makes me lose my shit like nobody else can, of course, because she's me. Yeah. And I remember her just looking at me and going, way to come from a place of love and light, Mom. And just going, oh, she's so right.
This is love and light.
Yeah. And another formation, right? But no, it wasn't love and light. I wasn't coming from a place of love and light. And so I think we need to be gentle with ourselves and remind ourselves, but then also forgive ourselves when we don't always live in the love and the light. And I think, again, psychedelics can help us with that.
Yeah. One of my biggest words is compassion.
Yes.
Self-compassion, which is why we have Kuan Yin here, the goddess of compassion, because it's hard, it's hard. And I think for me anyway, I'm just a quicker returner. Okay, I get it, but okay, quickly come back. Every time faster and faster. Yes. I mean, sometimes honestly, a month can go by. I didn't even realize I was in a hellhole until, oh shit. Yeah. Get back in, but whatever, compassion. This is how, I operate sometimes. Yeah. Period. It's okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's just that reminder. It's the coming back, with my daughter sometimes, because she did suffer from addiction, for so long. When she gets into those dark places sometimes, I say, just remember that, you are love and light, and you do not want to give yourself something to use over. So come back to your center.
Yeah.
Remember who you are. Remember who you are. And that seems, I mean, I hope it's contributing to her, staying on the path.
Yeah. I mean, definitely a supportive mom is very contributing to the path. A lot of, people get clean, get sober, and then they go back home, and it's the same fucking shit show.
Yeah.
And it's just, how do you ever expect this?
Yeah.
Because we're all a part of it. The whole family dynamic.
Absolutely.
So the more we do our own work and are supportive,
Yeah.
the easier just to turn that shit around,
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And believe me, I wasn't always supportive, I had to learn too. I was a very broken, in constant pain mother because I could not save my daughter.
Right.
And it was
It's hard.
the most painful thing I think I've ever experienced, because you lose your children without losing them physically.
Yeah.
And it is like a death over and over again. Every time the relapse happens, every time they go back to that lifestyle or whatever, it's like you have to bury them again.
Yeah.
And because they're not your kids. That wasn't Jessica. That was a demon, you know? And
I know.
man, as a parent, it's just, but you're right. When you have a family system, a family dynamic that is sick, that's why, when you have addictions, some of the best things that you can do for yourself is actually leaving that family behind
For a while.
and creating your own family structures within your community or whatever, because until you're really strong, I think, in your recovery, and you really understand that people are going to be who they are, that you can't change them just like they couldn't change you. There's the acceptance and compassion, but there's also not having to expose yourself to it over and over again. You don't have to stay in abusive family dynamics.
No.
No.
Yeah, I talk about that all the time. You don't need to go to the dinner or this or that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And another thing, too, is like you talk about all this, how we need to be educated about psilocybin and educated about these, it's like these ancient technologies.
Yeah.
Well, also, when there's an addiction in the family, it's okay to educate yourself, even if you're not the person that's addicted. Like, my mom, I would give her these Al-Anon books, Naranon books, and they all were just getting cobwebs right there next to her bed.
Yeah.
They never wanted to even admit that this is a dynamic and this is part of the problem.
Yeah.
Right? So, no. Oh, yeah, I'm going to read it later, whatever. You're sober, so everything's fine. Actually, no.
No.
So, yeah, if you have someone, now that we're talking about this, I'll put my little addiction input in here.
Yeah.
Educate yourself.
Yeah.
And it's not to blame anyone. It's just,
No.
read some of those Naranon books. Read about addiction. Listen to Gabor Mate about the whole dynamics of trauma and childhood. Because everyone struggles with it in some way or another. It doesn't always have to be hard drugs. We're all in some way or another numbing, medicating some horrible pain of something that happened to us or something that didn't happen to us that we should have received,
Exactly. And I think as a mother, one of the most painful things also is understanding your role in your child's addiction.
Right.
And that was something that I discovered through my medicine work. I saw it clear in peyote ceremony. I saw it clear in psilocybin. So every way in which I contributed to her addiction.
The medicine showed you, like, when you were in it? Or?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like a movie, like really clear and really, really clearly.
Yeah.
And what was so sad is for so much of that, she wasn't in my life. And so much of that healing happened in her absence. And then it was so interesting when she did finally hit her bottom and was in my life again. She kept trying to relate to me as a person I wasn't anymore.
Right.
And it took her a long time to, I think, trust that I had actually shifted something in me as it pertained to her addiction. And through that, we found deep healing, deep healing. And that's why I love to see when individuals come to plant medicine to help with addiction, that the family comes along too,
Right.
in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Because that healing is deep.
Oh shit, that is so cool to hear that. Yes, it does take a while for you to trust that your parents are actually different. But the fact that she did, and I've kind of been a witness to this, kind of
You've been
a
there.
little bit of first.
Yeah.
So it's like, fuck yeah, this is so cool. Like,
Yeah.
the transformation, the connection to
Yeah.
self, to heart, and then to be
Yeah.
able to, regenerate really this
Yeah.
relationship, because it's the work of intergenerational trauma, turning that shit right around. And I see the pictures of her and your grandkid, and it's just,
Yeah.
I mean, we're all in it, but it's really cool to
We
see that
are.
it's possible.
Yes. Yes. And for so long, I thought it wasn't possible.
Yeah.
And we did a really powerful journey together, New Year's Eve. And it was amazing. We sat in front of each other, facing each other,
Wow.
and just looked at in each other's eyes, and just, it was like, I love you. I love you. I love you. And it was really, but even still, like I did a journey a couple of weeks ago, and man, still that, the thing that came up for me over and over again has often was, my prayer was, show her how beautiful she is. Mom, because my mom always comes, shows up in my journey work. Mom, show her how beautiful she was.
Yeah.
She is. Her father unfortunately took his life, and I'm like, Sean, come to her and show her that she was conceived in love, that she is love, that she's beautiful.
That she's wanted.
It's interesting. I mean, even still, that was such a big, powerful part of my journey just recently. And I'm still grieving, I'm still grieving that loss of her innocence that happened as a result of, she had sexual assault trauma when she was 13, and, where her dad was obviously emotionally and mentally being not well. It just affected her so much, and obviously led to her turning to drugs and alcohol as a way to cope with that pain.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but it's story after story of like what you're saying, that it is possible to heal.
Yes.
No matter what has happened to you.
Yes.
Healing is available for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, honestly, the power of bringing it right back into this beautiful medicine of mushrooms. That they help so much to advance the healing process, to show you, it could be intense. First, they're enhancers, so they're going to enhance whatever's in there. But also to connect you to love and to help and to just show these possibilities. I love talking about possibilities, so thank you for sharing that, because I know a lot of women or a lot of people are listening to this that either went through that and think there's no hope, or they have a kid that's struggling and think, oh my gosh, well, there's the good news, because now this is the good news, the real good news.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm always very cautious about the way that I talk about it too, because it doesn't happen for everyone. And I wanted to make sure that people I think managing people's expectations around plant medicine and healing with plant medicine is so important.
Right.
But
it isn't just the plant medicine, the healer. I mean, it's a big journey of therapy and community and different work. And I'm not saying, here, take the psilocybin, you're fine. What I'm saying is, it's one of the beautiful opportunities of this technology and this earth that we live in, our true mother, that is available. But what I'm really saying is, there's possibility.
There's a possibility, and it's a big possibility, because I think, in my experience, I've seen it certainly help a hell of a lot more than I have seen it not help. And usually when people don't launch or they don't give into the medicine, that's usually when it doesn't work, because you
Right.
have
You're
to
fighting it.
really be prepared, and you have to be prepared to let go. And I mean, talk about let go and let God.
Oh yeah.
I mean, let go,
Yeah.
let the plant, or let the fungi, or let the
Right.
medicine, whatever it is, because if you fight it, it's just not going to be a good
Yeah.
time for you.
No, it's not. Resisting it is, yeah.
Yeah, it's futile.
It's very,
Yeah,
very exhausting.
and it is.
Just like in anything else.
Yeah, and then why are you there? I mean, I've worked with clients before. Interesting, because I love astrology, and I've done the soft science around people who have a more difficult time launching, and it's always earth signs: Capricorn, Taurus, Virgo, because they're rooted into the earth. They're literally, they're the stubborn ones. They're the, the analytical ones, the ones who stay here. Um, and that's not what the medicine is asking you to do. The medicine is asking you to let go.
Right.
And it's asking you to trust, and all of those things. And so it's fascinating to me. Fire signs, the best. That they just, because they're always like ready for an adventure. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Fire.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an
Nice.
interesting, like I said, kind of a soft science
Yeah.
around
That's
astrology
interesting.
and medicine.
All right. So 2 more things. The medical aid in dying, medical assistance,
Medical aid in dying.
medical aid in dying.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Because I have a,
Oh my
I think
gosh.
it's really amazing,
I do too.
but I also, I mean, I've heard people just tell me like, no, that's a horrible thing. You have to figure out with your soul and do this
Yeah.
work. And it wasn't even a Catholic person, because I know my
Yeah.
dad was super Catholic.
Yeah.
He would be like, no, you
Yeah.
can't do that. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
God has to figure out.
Oh yeah.
And this other person who's, I think pretty much like a deep, or at least very intellectually Buddhist.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know where her heart is, but she's like, no, you can't do medical assistance because the soul still has to figure this shit out, and otherwise they're gonna have to come back and figure it out in the next life. And I was like, what the hell is wrong with you? Because have you seen? I mean, I think I'm curious, what your take is on it, because in my opinion, I think it's not a bad idea
Yeah.
to have this as a last resource, or as a beautiful resource to, especially if you're, just about to get into the most horrific pain, not just discomfort. I'm talking about like, poop coming out of your mouth and your ears, and because this is some of the stuff that happens. Why would it not be a beautiful opportunity?
Yeah. So this is one of those things where everybody has their own path. Everybody
course.
has their own belief system. Everybody has what they know to be true, right? I lobbied for medical aid in dying. I'm a big proponent. I'm a
Right.
big fan. I lived in Switzerland also for many years, where they're far more advanced, even with, in Switzerland, if you're suffering from crippling depression and you have tried everything and you can't get out of it and you want to leave, you can leave.
Damn.
I
I heard
think
about that. I don't know about it. Yeah.
being given the fact that my son-in-law took his life, my ex-husband took his life, and my biological father took his life. There's a very strong suicidal thread in our lineage. I think if people want to die and they want to take their lives, they're going to. There's nothing we can do to stop them from doing that. Some people, I was so astonished that my former husband took his life, because he was very religious, and I thought he'll never do that, because of it. But we don't know the pain that people are in, right? And I think that people who have opinions about things they've never experienced is challenging. So if you've never died of bone cancer and you don't know the level of the pain and the inability of medications to very often not alleviate your suffering, or that, as you said, the sort of the nitty gritty that, a lot of times we see dying portrayed on television. Oh, and the family is gathered around, and it's the, oh, it takes the deep breath, and that's it. And it isn't it beautiful? Well, it's not all the time that way. And I think that at the end of the day, it's the ability to make your own decision around it. I think we need to talk about it more. I talk about it with my clients all the time. We need to normalize it more, I think. But we're never going to change the Roman Catholic Church,
or the Buddhists,
or the Buddhists, or the Orthodox, or the you know, whatever the deep, rich seated belief systems and religious belief systems. We're not going to change that. It's not my job to change it. It's my job to respect it. Whatever it is that you have, I'm happy to give you the education around it and tell you what it looks like.
Right.
Even with hospice, it's very interesting. A lot of the hospice organizations, you have to unenroll from hospice care if you're going to choose medical aid in dying. And it's so odd to me. It's like, really? Like, but they want nothing to do with it. They don't want their hospice nurses or caretakers in the room when it happens. And I mean, to me, again,
Why is that?
For liability. It's always about money somehow,
Right?
You know,
insurance.
yeah. And then and maybe some of the folks who actually work for hospice have religious beliefs that
Well, what do you mean? They give you a whole bucket of morphine.
I know.
When they come in.
I know.
Which is exactly the same thing, just a little bit.
I know.
It's watered down morphine.
I know. You're preaching to the choir on that one. I know exactly. Believe me, I know. But it's just somehow I don't know. Again, when we go back to the thing of people face their death the way they face their life,
right.
I'm a head-on person. If I had a terminal diagnosis, the moment that I didn't have a quality of life, I'm throwing a big-ass party. Yeah. You're invited, by the way.
Thank you.
And say nice things about me, please, because I want to be there. I want to be there. I want to hear what people have to say.
We'll play the podcast.
We'll play the podcast, yeah. I'm going to have a big party, and I want to be in control of the way I go if I can. If I have that opportunity to do so, hell yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of native people, tribes that are still, when they're older and they're ready to go, they walk on into the forest.
Yep.
There's all these plans that they would take.
Yep.
And then, okay, I'm done with this realm.
That's right.
Why am I going to?
That's right. Yeah, because there's no, people like their suffering and their pain, especially, certain religious beliefs, the martyr for the pain and God's will. And I have a challenging time with that. For me, it's like, this is your life. This is your life. Yeah. And if you want to and the reason I talked about the suicide is because people often will say, oh, it's so incredibly selfish of them. And how could your son-in-law have left that little beautiful boy who was, and your daughter suffered so much? Aren't you angry? And I'm like, no, I'm not. Yeah. Because I didn't walk in his shoes. I didn't suffer the way that clearly he had suffered for many, many years.
Right.
And it's not my place to judge anybody of the way that they live or die.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So freeing, because most of the judgments they're really about ourselves, about how we see things. And because there's also, Stephen Jenkins
Mm-hmm.
He mentioned at one point, that they shouldn't give them morphine at the end because they need to do this wrestling with their own. And I'm like, well, because you haven't been almost dying yet.
That's exactly right.
So that's great.
That's exactly
theoretically speaking.
Yeah, yeah.
But when you have someone there who's just...
Oh, my gosh. And
you can wait till the end. I'm not saying, but...
There was a great show I just watched on Hulu called Dying for Sex. Mm-hmm. Have you seen it?
No, but I'm going to.
You have to watch it. And I think it's one of the most authentic representations of someone's death. who knows that they're dying and has cancer, and it's a bone cancer, which is very painful.
Yeah.
And it was tremendous. It was the way they got it. They nailed it. Yeah.
I'm gonna watch it. Yeah,
Yeah.
my grandfather had bone cancer.
Yeah. And ultimately, that's what my brother had as well. My mother, it metastasized. My mom's was breast cancer that metastasized to bone cancer, and my brother, we don't even know what his original cancer was, but that when it gets into your bones, it's just the pain is so intense. And if you've ever walked beside someone who cannot get their pain under control and their pain managed. And it was interesting because I was giving my brother THC gummies, and he's like, Kat, you're going to make me break my sobriety. I can't take these. And I'm like, Danny,
Brother, please.
brother, please. And he did. And he had some really nice relief and some peace for a little bit. The cancer pain was too strong even for that.
Yeah,
I mean, the amount of Dilaudid and Versed sedation that man was on, the doctor was like, this would kill 10 people. He's like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's my brother.
Yeah.
He's a fighter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the body will fight. That's another thing I've seen, like with end of life, is sometimes no matter how spiritual you are and you're like, okay, I'm ready, let's do this. The body has a different mechanism.
body has other plans.
And it's like, no, I want to be, the body wants to live.
Yeah.
And it's doing its thing. And in order to get it together, it's like,
we see that even with medical aid in dying. I was at a death a couple of weeks ago, and she was totally ready to go. She was happy to go. Sometimes it's about the gut biome too, the way that the medicine works. But even with that medicine, it was almost 24 hours before she actually took her last breath.
wow.
So it was
Her body wanted it.
Yeah.
But she wasn't struggling. She was just not going?
No.
Okay.
She was completely sedated.
Okay.
And the medicine was just, it just took a long time. And I was speaking with my friend who's a palliative care doctor, and said, because I called, because the family was calling me, and they were like, she's still here.
Yeah.
And I said, is that normal? Or was there something wrong with the administration? And she said, no, it happens. And
Yeah.
it's sometimes, it has to do with the gut biome. Interestingly enough, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The body has its own plans.
Yeah. And then I think ultimately, we should all be living like we're dying, I think that because we never know. You just really don't know. And so what would you do today if you knew that it was your last day? Who would you apologize to? Who would you forgive?
Right.
And I think that, sometimes the medicine can help us to really live in that moment, the be here now, you know, and enjoy that sunset because it might be your last one, you know? So
live with that awareness.
Yeah. And the breath.
Yeah, for sure. I know. Every time I get to pause, like the cats or whatever, I'm like, okay, I'm here with the cats.
Yeah.
Nothing else. Just me and the cats.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we're going to die. I just get so overwhelmed with it's so beautiful and so present and it's so fast. And so, we got to have fun, record a lot of podcasts, go party, go dance, hang out with your friends.
And I think it's interesting because, I love my daughter so much. I love my grandson so much. And every once in a while, that thing that mothers do, where we picture, for whatever reason, we picture our offspring dying.
Oh, gosh.
And why do we do that to ourselves? Why do we torture ourselves in that way? And that happens to me. It's I think, because I've been really fragile and really tender of late with my brother's passing, it's happened more. And I can work myself up and just sobbing. Yeah. And then I have to remind myself that we are all vibrational energy and light and love. And as much as it would be devastating beyond if anything like that happened, I would be sure in the knowledge that our energies will be together again.
Just transforming.
And I have to let that go, because if you don't, my gosh, it could be just debilitating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's all right if it's debilitating for a while.
Yeah. That's what love does to us sometimes.
That's what the body does too, like the brain. And yeah, I'm doing all this study on grief and the brain now, and it's just, um, it's like an emotional post-traumatic brain injury. No, emotional brain injury.
Mm-hmm.
When you have grief, the brain is just
Mm-hmm.
rewiring, and the body's just falling apart,
Yes.
and you
Yes.
just can't make sense of it. You can't. I
Yeah.
mean, when my dad died, I think I probably just lost before he even died.
Yeah.
When I knew it was coming,
Yeah.
like I had this crazy out of body experience.
Yeah.
I was leading a retreat, and they told me the day I got there, and I was like, "What do you mean a month? Okay, I'll deal with this when I get back. I have these,
Yeah.
20 women at this retreat,
Yeah.
and we went into the ice, which I don't really like the ice, but whatever. We did the ice thing, and I don't remember anything for like 6 hours. I just left my body. And I was just walking around telling people, my dad's dying. Oh, isn't that horrible? And I would be crying. And I kept repeating myself over and over again. I don't remember anything until I was literally on my way to the hospital. My friend Tanya came to take me. And then I came back and I thought, oh my God, this is exactly what my dad is feeling. Like super confused, super scared. Like what the hell? It's almost like I got out of the body because I couldn't deal with it.
You disassociated.
And then people were like, what the fuck is wrong with her? She's crazy. I kept asking like every 2 minutes, how long was he in the ice for? 10 minutes? No, 3 minutes. Wait, how long was he in the ice for? And we were not in the ice longer than 2 minutes. But yeah, it was so intense. And 2 or 3 other times that I just, on the floor, my body literally was saying, this is too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Oh,
and
I
then
know.
it was horrible. So there's this part that is just I don't even know why I'm saying this, but it's normal to completely just break down and lose your shit and know what the fuck, and there's nothing wrong with you. It's just this is the way the body works.
And it's so beautiful. If people could study grieving rituals, I think it would help so much. Even in my situation, I'm a single woman who runs a practice, who runs a home, who runs a family, and I'm the caregiver of a lot of different entities. And I was shocked at some of my behavior just in grieving my brother because I didn't have the bandwidth.
Yeah.
I didn't have the bandwidth to be delicate and gentle with someone who had come over and said something absurd. And I was just like, what the fuck? Shut the fuck up. I mean, I would never be like that, but I yelled. My daughter was raising her voice to me and I was like, I'm going to yell louder than you. And I realized that it was just this part
pain
of this grieving. And I remember this person who was there and they wrote me a note a couple of days later and were like, I feel unsafe with you, and you're a leader in the you're a leader in the psychedelic community, and how could you act that way? And and this person's like 30 and no one's ever died in their life, and I'm like, I apologize. It wasn't my best moment, but I need grace right now. I need compassion and I need grace. And if you can't give that to me, that's cool, but you can't be around me right now because this is what I'm going through. This is what grief looks like. Yeah.
It's no joke.
Yeah.
It's just, and one other of the things that I was reading is that how we're wired for grief, right?
Yeah.
It's part of the design for our evolution. Like if we didn't care if someone died, just, oh, your baby died, whatever, keep on walking.
Yeah, right.
We wouldn't have evolved.
Yeah, you wouldn't be human. Yeah.
So it's like, we're supposed to break down and not know, and you can feel guilt or be angry or just, it's not always just crying up in a little ball. It's all, it could just be like, my body isn't prepared to hold this
absolutely
pain. And so,
and that's so true. And then, like I said, when you're a person who, I don't have a partner in my life who can help to, bring, although my daughter was amazing. I mean, my daughter just stepped up and helped me so much. But still, when you're the person who's always making the show run, it's hard for you to know how to ask for help.
Right.
And so when you're in your grief, you're in that that moment, you're still doing what you do, which
Yeah.
is everything,
Yeah.
you know. And then there are just those moments where the grief just grabs you by the back of the hair and slams you down on the ground and goes, yeah, you're going to be down here for a minute. Sorry, I know you've got shit to do,
Yeah.
but you're going to be down there for a minute. You know, I did a podcast and started just sobbing right in the middle of it, just sobbing, could not come out. And I said, I'm so sorry. And they're like, no, it's okay. I'm like, I could not get myself back around.
Yeah.
And I had to stop. I said, we're going to have to do this on another day. And why did I think I could do that? You know, a
Right.
month later, why did I think I could do that and talk about death and dying and all that when I was going through that? Well, because,
Yeah.
you know, that's what I do.
Yeah.
You know, you move forward.
Right.
And, yeah, grief is something else.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big capacity. All right, real quick before we close, because we don't have to, we can keep going. We wrote down before we started, we want to talk about if somebody wants to get in this to do this, or is called to do this type of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is some of your advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, don't quit your day job because it's going to take time. Do your own work. I mean, that's probably one of the most important things when people come to me and they say, I say, tell me about your journey so far with your own plant medicine work or your own grief work or your own, you know, therapy or whatever. You have to do your own work. Super important. And, you know, even though I was joking, it really is true that, you know, I built my practice one client at a time. I built my reputation one client at a time, doing good work, showing up, being present, not being, you know, hungover or coming off of a medicine journey and then trying to sit with somebody. Your vessel, your soul and your spirit is your tool in doing this work. So your intuition being clear, developing your intuition, like I said, doing body work and all of that for the years that I did, it helped me immensely to be able to be present. Right. If folks are interested specifically in doing work for end of life, the first thing I say is go volunteer at a hospice, because hospice will train you in some really basic fundamentals. And then I have stacks of books that you can read and different films and things that I recommend for people. I think when people are called to work with people at the end of their lives, it's a very specific and a very special calling. And there's something that happens where it's a knowing that you have what it takes to walk that walk with someone. And it's the most incredible work. It's the most intimate, beautiful work. As hospice, you know, people will tell you that work, hospice nurses or doctors, they'll tell you, or just volunteers for hospice, that you get to be a witness to this most intimate, beautiful time. It's like being at a birth, you know? Exactly. And so that's really it. I mean, you know, I have always made myself available to the younger generation in my community for whatever they needed. You know, if they are thinking about it, they want to come and talk with me. I have apprenticeships that I do for free. I don't charge for that. Nobody pays me money to show them this work, right. You know, because my goal in life is that one day, you know, you can sit with your abuela if you're having a hard time with some psilocybin, and she's going to know exactly what to do. She's going to know how to hold you in that space. Right. But I want to share the knowledge. I want to share that experience that freely with people, because I want people to have it. And but if you know, your path is taking you down a road that it looks like you need to be a doctor or a therapist or whatever, do it that way too. You know, there's just no judgment, you know, how people come to it. But the most important thing I can say, and I think that they would tell you this too, if you were going to school to become a therapist, you have to do your own work.
for sure.
because you're bringing all of that into that session. You're bringing all of you, you know. Make sure you have good practices, yoga practices, clearing practices, that when that person comes to your door, you are ready and you are centered to be the best guide for them and hold
Right.
the best space for them.
You're
Yeah.
not projecting all your shit on them.
That's right.
Yeah.
This is exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And listen more than you talk.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. 100%. And so where can people find you? What's your website? Healingwithkat.com?
Yeah, so healingwithkat.com is my website. Healing with KK is my Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. You know, unfortunately, I can't stand it, but it's kind of a necessary evil. I'm not good at it at all.
I'll
But
just get the messages. You send me a message? Let me check.
yeah, exactly. But the website, people usually reach out to me through my website.
I'll put all those links on the show notes as well.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so
for
much.
sure.
And thank you for everything that you do and for being you. And I just appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Just trying to have some fun here.
Gotta have some fun,
community.
right?
Mm-hmm.
To juxtapose all the pain, we gotta have some fun.
Yeah. And grow this community. You know, spread awareness.
For sure.
Normalize that it could be a shit show here and there.
Yeah.
And also thank you for the work you're doing with all this information and advocacy and and you know and spreading this web of psychedelic work.
Yeah. I mean, we're here. We're in it.
We're in it.
You know, I'm just like every day I just can't believe I get to do this. I'm so lucky and you know, also I think the last thing we should probably touch on with it in regards to if you want to do this work is until the laws change, you know, you have to understand. I mean, I'm a lifetime member of the Native American Church. I've got a card that says I can hold this medicine. If that ever were challenged, I would not want to see the result necessarily, especially in the environment that we're in now. But you do have to remember that, you know, at any given time you are holding a Schedule I drug. And I'm a life coach.
Unless you're a church.
Yes, there
like
you go.
Me.
There you go. There you go. Unless you're a church like you. I am a life coach.
Us. There's a bunch of us.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. And I so much great work in that container. I love it. But I have an LLC. I pay taxes.
Yeah.
You know, everything is like all the money is above board. I don't sell medicine. I give medicine. And that's important to remember because a lot of people are like, oh, there's decrim now. We can go and grow and sell. They're like, no, you can't. You can't. And so I think it's just important that people understand that. And that's another hot button for me with legacy medicine holders and why I get a little incensed sometimes because it's like, hi, remember us? Like we've been over here
for years
helping folks at great risk. And now you're going to say that the only people who are allowed to sit with these medicines and folks are people who have a letter or 2 or 3 behind their name. That doesn't feel right to me. That doesn't feel good to me.
It's exclusive. It's colonialist.
It is.
And you know, the other thing too, we forgot to mention is just how the reverence and how sacred this technology is.
Yes.
It's no joke. You can't, let me just go do a ceremony. Well, good luck with that. Because you're opening up these really powerful portals into different realms, into different energies.
Yeah.
And so there is that other really powerful and and sacred container that needs to be held inside of us.
Yes.
And also for the people that are there. Because it's no joke.
It isn't.
It's pretty big and very intense. And I would feel very... It's almost like, ooh, here we go, another ceremony. All right.
Big responsibility. Yeah.
Big
and one
reverence.
of the reasons that I don't do it anymore, because the responsibility is so big. And even though my one-on-one work is the same, you're still opening that portal. You're still doing that. For me, you know, I didn't study in a lineage. I wasn't in the lineage of the Mazateca. I wasn't in the Maria Sabina's lineage and the way in which that beautiful ceremony is held. And so for me, I feel like I don't have the right to do ceremony in that way. You know, I was trained in the peyote way, but I still, even when I chose to stop holding community peyote meeting, which, by the way, was not really allowed. You know, the Native American church does not allow a woman to hold a peyote meeting. That's not.
Yeah, what's up with that patriarchal bullshit?
Well, I
'Cause
mean,
it used to not
you
be that
know,
way. If you go down the line, it's the
way
woman that carry the medicine.
right. That's right. But I
And
mean,
switch over.
they switched it, and it's interesting to me because you know so many of the sort of, you know, well, there's just a lot. There's a lot there because there's abuse there too, and it's not just you know the Native American church is like, you know, they do a lot of great things, and the different churches, you have to remember they're not all created equally, and we shouldn't just be giving a pass to them, like, you know, like there isn't challenges, because there are. And some of the people, it's so interesting, some of the, you know, really younger generation who are looking to that, and we have to protect that the Native American church. It's like, oh girl, if you knew some of the things that happen within that, you'd be, you know, you'd be on your platform right now talking about it, you know, but they don't, because it's kept, you know, quite closed.
Secret.
And so, no, I just think that you're absolutely right. And that's why and again, this is the last quick story I'll tell you. When I sat with ayahuasca, it was about 15 years ago, and I didn't know anything about ayahuasca, but someone was like, I really want you to come to this, and it's at this person's house, and there's about 30 people, and we're going to be in a living room, and bring a bucket and wear white. This is my preparation for this whole thing. I'm like, okay, sounds good. You know, be a fire sign, like, let's go.
Right.
Something in me, again, my intuition, because it was a friend of mine's house actually, and I knew they had this beautiful orange grove. I brought a blow-up mattress and inflated a blow-up mattress, brought my down comforter and my pillows, and set it up in the orange grove. Went into the ceremony. The person who walked in, who was the shaman, and I swear they called themselves a shaman, could not have been more than 24. Long blonde dreadlocks. Hippie baby mama, you know, with the baby breastfeeding, and just, I swear they just flew in from Burning Man. And we drank, and it was some of this borrowed, appropriated ceremonial aspects of ayahuasca ceremony. Of course, I didn't know that then. I was just like, oh, this is interesting. And then they blew out the candle, and so we were all, you know, just coming onto the medicine, and he started playing guitar and singing songs that he wrote with his lyrics. And all of a sudden, all I could think about was Charles Manson.
Holy shit.
That's all I could see was Charles Manson playing guitar and singing music that he had written.
Were you freaking out?
I wasn't freaking out, but I promptly got up and left and went down into the orange grove, and I got into my bed with my blanket. And then a little while later, he came down and he goes, I really need you to come back into the circle. And I looked at him, and, like, disclaimer, I am not a shaman. I don't call myself a shaman. I've never considered ever. I know what that means, that word actually means. But for whatever reason, in that moment, I looked him in the eyes and I said, I am a shaman. And he just went, okay, you're okay then? I'm like, and then he left. And I did have a beautiful experience. I saw wisteria vine encompassing my home. And I heard Madre say, you won't die like your mom died.
Oh, wow.
And I had carried that. And I really did release it in that moment. I released that. So anyway, that's my last little story. I promise.
No, we can keep going.
No.
Joe Rogan goes for 3 hours. What the fuck? No, that's great, because in a way, it's cool that you knew what to do and you knew how to get out there, and you knew since before. Yeah.
That's the intuition.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I try, and I'm much more of a student than a teacher. I don't consider myself a teacher, but that's one thing that I try to teach. Listen to yourself, listen to your intuition, and develop that intuition. Right. Trust that intuition. Yeah. We have such a hard time, especially as women. We have such a hard time trusting that. Yeah. And it's a gift to us.
Yeah, it is. I know. That's such a cool story. Yeah, when I went, I never, people kept inviting me to ayahuasca, inviting me. I'm like, listen, only way I'm going to do ayahuasca is if I'm in Peru with a female shaman.
You have to go
I'm
to
not going to go to
Ayamadre.
some guys.
Ayamadre.
And
Estela.
then, well, yeah, I mean, it turns out one day I'm here and my best friend, one of my best friends is like, hey, listen, there's this female Shipibo. She's coming in from Peru and she's coming to Ensenada. And I'm like, well, they brought her to me. Let's go, you know. And it was just like 10 women with this lady and her
Beautiful.
assistant. And it was very powerful. Um,
And I bet the Icaro was beautiful. And she
she
wasn't
did the
singing lyrics, she
Icaros.
wrote.
No, it was all Icaros. And then there was
Yeah.
also like a couple of Mexican kids singing other Mexican
Yeah,
medicine
yeah.
songs or Latin
Yeah. Yeah.
medicine songs.
Yeah.
But the Icaros were just like,
Oof.
good. Híjole, yeah. No, it was very intense. But that's all the understanding about my mom
Yeah.
and then my grandmother and all. I saw all the grandparents, all the great grandparents, everybody. I was like, in little children essence, and I just understood like,
Oh,
oh, you guys
wow.
were kids, you guys were
Oh,
hurt.
wow.
This is why you
Yeah.
were mean. This is why
That's
you were
right.
drinking. This is why
Yes.
you were so hard. But
Yes.
also all the beautiful part of it.
Yes.
And yeah, and I saw my mom. I knew, okay, you're leaving. People kept saying she's not gonna die. She can be like this for years. And I was like, I don't think so. I really think she's dying. No, it could be years. And that same night, she was just, it was super clear. Like she just showed up there and was like, yeah, I'm leaving. I'm only here because of you, you know, and the kids. And yeah, I granted the love that I experienced that night. Just the after, of course, the horror show and me tripping balls and freaking out. And because, yes, it's intense,
Yeah.
but we were held really well. You know, the lady came over and she was like, don't worry about it. Just welcome the messages, welcome the visitors. Okay, okay. You know, and then after that intense, all of the yoga and breathing techniques came through, you
for
know.
sure.
And I was able to experience the most profound sensation of love that I've ever felt, which is one of the things that my friend Paola says. It's just the grandmother experience is just this profound, powerful love that,
Yeah.
wow, I was
Yeah.
not expecting that, you know, but yeah, that was the first one. And some of them, I don't think I'm done with her for now. It was two
Yeah,
before my mom died, two after. Thank you.
Yeah.
Still
I've
integrating. Whew.
not sat with, because I feel the same way. I mean, for me, I feel like it's, and I'll finish this thought and then I want to touch on something because I don't think I made actually the point I was trying to get at earlier with regards to reverence for ceremony.
Right.
But I'll finish this thought, and that is that for me, I want to experience the vine where the vine grows. I want and the chacruna. I want to experience it in the jungle where it comes from. All of that, because I have traveled to Italy, for example, and had the table wine that is grown in the village, and the experience of that wine is like amazing. I want to take a bottle home. You take a bottle home, you make a spaghetti, you open it, and you're like, this doesn't taste the same, right? And because it's everything, it's the everything that goes into the experience. But the final thought on the ceremony was that I had a conversation with a doctor in the UK about Compass Pathways, who I really detest as a company. I think they're soulless and evil. But they're helping to create this psilocybin delivery system and a pill and whatever, that the medical health system, the national health system in the UK, will pay for. So people will have access to it, right? Okay. And there are a lot of people in the UK who are very depressed, very, very depressed. And he said to me, because I was like, no, that's appropriation of cultures and you're not, giving back. And who do you think you are? And the white man. And I was on my soapbox. It was a tear. And he said, why do you think that the only people who deserve healing are the people who can come to your teepee? Mm-hmm. Why do you feel that way? What makes you so superior to believe that there's only one way? That either they have to go and sit in a ceremony with a shaman or they have to go, there's a lot of people suffering here. They're never going to
Right.
be able to go to a ceremony, or they're never going to be able to go to your teepee. Why don't they deserve
Or to
some
Peru or
relief
whatever.
of their pain?
Yeah.
And I was like, damn,
Yeah.
he right.
Yeah.
You know, I was
Mhm.
like, all right. You know what I mean? Do I still feel, again, like my personal feeling, that the experience of going to Peru and sitting, you know, with Shipibo curandera is the most optimal and mystical and beautiful experience? 100% I do. But I changed my view on the idea that that's the only way,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. And low key, I think life is bringing forth the expansion of this, I call it technology,
Yeah.
because of the shift in consciousness that we're experiencing.
Right.
And so the more we can connect to this consciousness, to this love, I mean, it's everywhere, right? There's
Yeah.
sound healing everywhere. There's yoga everywhere. There's
Yeah.
meditation. There's
Yeah.
all these modalities. This shit wasn't happening 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
So it is, I think, part of the plan of whatever's stirring up this new shift,
Yeah.
that these things are becoming more available.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think, again, we need less judgment.
yeah.
We need less judgment, more compassion, more love, less, you know, I mean, in the psychedelic space, I'm seeing so much of this us versus them, and
Yeah.
you know, they ain't like us, and you know, if you don't do it this way, and you have to, you know, it's like,
Get over yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's wild though, because you would think in this space, right, that there's so many people who are enlightened and who have done the work and have sat in medicine space. But I have a good friend of mine who said to me recently, because I used to have Viva La Underground was this signal group that I ran, which was created as a place for people to come and exchange good ideas and ways in which that we could sit with medicine in a good way and be a support for each other. But then it grew to like over 200 people, and then there was so many different personalities in there, and I am not good at managing personalities,
Yeah.
you know, not at all. And I was having a hard time because somebody was getting into some stuff that was triggering me, and I was not my best self, and it was just, you know,
Yeah.
not a good look. And so this dear friend of mine, who's a wise sage, sent me a message. He was watching all of this happen, and he said, "Oh, Kat, wait a minute. You're surprised that people who gravitate to the space largely because of their own mental health issues and because their own addictions, and they're sitting with massive amounts of like different kinds of psychedelics. You're surprised that things are going sideways right now?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, right. We forget that sometimes. We forget that a lot of times people are drawn to psychedelics because of their own trauma, because their own damage, their own, and we're all at different phases of our healing. We're all in different places, and we're all just trying to do the best that we can, right? That being said, I still don't want to be in the middle of managing that, because I am not good at it, and there are so many people who are just amazing at it. You know, they can hear people, and they can hear that, and no matter how absurd it may or may not seem to them, they just go, "I hear you." And I'm like, "What the fuck did you just say? Like, get over it already," you know? And like, "You can't do that, Kat. You can't, you know, not everybody's going to," "Oh, that's right. Okay."
Yeah.
So
Everyone has their own little talents. Let
that's
them
right.
do their own thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'll stick to
That's
like
so
people one-on-one. I'm better that way.
Yeah. Honestly, I think 200 is too much. I think original communities weren't even that big.
That's right. So we have Viva La Underground San Diego now, which is a smaller group, 50 people maximum, so that we can really be more in community with each other.
Yeah. And that's cool. That's a fun group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Viva La Underground.
Because Viva la Underground, man.
That's right.
What else are we going to do?
That's right.
Or, you know, First Amendment.
There you go.
So thank you.
Thank you again. It's so much fun.
Yeah, this was fun. Thank you, everyone,
Yeah.
for listening. And I'll put all the stuff in the show notes if you want to reach out to Kat. And we will see you all next time.
Ciao,
Thanks
ciao.
for listening to Tales of Recovery. Ciao.
Bye-bye. Peace.